Monday, October 26, 2020. I'm Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com, and this is episode 84. I know on the last episode, 83, I accidentally had 82 on the screen the whole time. It was 83 with Darren and Dr. Nick, and so this one is 84. And today I'm going to be talking about, we don't have a guest, I'm going to be talking about why it's important to do more realistic prototyping in UX and CX work, and why I've chosen Axure for that. This is not sponsored. Axure doesn't pay me. I sadly pay them. So this is just my opinion on this, but it is the fun cousin of the fact that coming up soon, I am going to be doing a 2-day workshop live and online to teach you my Axure Core Skills program. I am one of Axure's recommended trainers. They also don't pay me to say that. It's also sad, isn't it? So today I'm going to be talking about Axure, and of course I'm going to be taking your live questions. For those of you listening on the audio-only podcast, this is one of our few podcasts that really kind of doesn't work on audio. I'm going to suggest you please check out the YouTube video because I'm showing Axure, I'm demoing a product, I'm showing some techniques. So it's going to be kind of important to see that if you are curious to see what Axure can do. And if you'd like to get my videos on Axure at a great discount, you can visit deltacx.link/DEC, like December, 2020, and that will take you to the sign-up form for the discounted videos and the discounted 2-day workshop, which together I'm making available for $60 American, 60, rather than the usual $900 that I used to charge, and it is true, that is what I used to charge. And of course, if you end up enjoying this, please remember to subscribe and have empathy for the like button. As usual, I will be taking questions live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and through Twitter if you want to tweet with hashtag DeltaCX. These are the ways to reach out and make this a conversation. I always hope people will use YouTube. That's got a much shorter delay and it feels a little bit closer to a conversation. So I'm going to start out by talking just a little bit in general about why I believe realistic prototyping is important. So we have to think about, what are we building the prototype for? Now, just so you know a little bit about my process, I don't start with sketches. I don't start with Sketch or Figma. You can. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these. I'm just saying I don't. I like to go straight into Axure because as I am coming up with concepts and their execution, I want to be able to see those brought to life. I want to experience them realistically. Now, I'm typically working in medium fidelity, which means it doesn't have its final visual design, but at least I can start clicking around my idea and I can see if the 4 horsemen of bad UX have shown up, my registered trademark: frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. Have I built something that is simple, logical, intuitive? Again, for me, the best way to know that is to try it out, walk through it. Now, of course, I'm not the user, and I'm not a great stand-in for the user. But it is part of my thought process to try to imagine what we know about users and try to determine if we are showing them something that is frustrating, confusing, disappointing, or distracting, so that I can continue simplifying and improving. So that being said, very often people are using a variety of prototyping tools out there. I know many people like InVision. I hear some people are using Principle. Sometimes I hear Figma or Sketch, though I have to admit I'm not that familiar with what they can do with prototyping. I hear Adobe XD. Sometimes I hear Framer. And there's even more. I did a slide 2 years ago on prototyping tools, and I think at the time I found 60. So there's a huge choice in tools out there, but I want to talk about, to me, what separates them from each other. To me, you have realistic prototyping and you have not realistic prototyping. Now, for some people, they assume that realism in prototyping means the visual design, that it has final typography and final colors and our favorite stock photos and text and whatever. Now, all of these, except Balsamic, I mean, most of these can do that. Axure does that as well. So to me, that's not where the realism is important. The realism is important in the interactivity, in how it's used. So again, if it looks pretty or it looks like our brand or it uses our style guide or whatever it is, that's great. But does this work similar to what's really going to happen? And that's where I get hung up. And that's why I use Axure. Again, not sponsored, not paid. I pay them. But I am trying to make the most realistic model or representation of this that I can without writing code and without bugging engineering to build me something, test me something, get it on a server. That's also a solution as well, but I think that using a rapid prototyping tool can save a lot of time, money, and sanity. And it can also keep us from bugging engineering until we have something really worth their time. Now, of course, the downside is that Axure and tools like it, they don't write very fantastic code. You can spit out code, but that's like having front page spit out code. So even Axure would tell you that the code is really for demos, testing, a staging environment, but never production. And some people say, well, I don't like that. I think our prototypes should end up real code. And I say, well, look, there's a trade-off there. If you are building real code, you run the risk that if this idea is poor or this execution is poor, that you're going to have to redo all of this. And all that time you spent coding and connecting it to databases or APIs was wasted because now we have to redo it. Or maybe the whole idea was garbage and we have to throw it out. Excuse me, a little chloroseptic. Been talking a lot today. And again, as we go, if you have any questions, I'd love to take them. Questions about prototyping and Axure. I am going to show you Axure. I'm going to show you some things that I've built. I'm going to show you some things you can do. This is not a how-to lesson. This is just to show you, to me, the power of Axure and why it's my tool of choice. I chose to learn it in early 2011 after looking at what was available at the time. I know there are more things available now, but I haven't fallen in love with InVision and some of these other ones because to me, it's not a realistic experience. It's like, click here, click here, click here, click here. Well, what about if there's different states of the page? What if I want people to fill out forms? What if I want to validate if they filled out the forms correctly and show them error messages if they missed something? What if I want to do math calculations? What if I want to do drag and drop? What if I want to do mobile responsive, or in Axure's case, mobile adaptive version? To me, it just doesn't cut it because I'm looking for that realism. So again, not the realism in the level of fidelity related to how artistic is this or does it match our brand, but the realism of does this work the way the real thing will work. And I'm going to try today, let's take a look at some of my panels and screens here. And I see people are live, so say hi and let me know what you're thinking so far. And if there's something you're hoping I'll do or show or build today, throw it out there because I'm going to build some things live just to show you what Axure can do after I show you a couple of things I built in the past. And Elijah is here, which always makes me happy. And he says, let's see. He says, excited to see this. I'd love to see how you jump into Axure to prototype. My problem is that I'd take way too long to visual ideas if I skip the simple wireframe stage. Yeah, and a lot of people feel that way. That's common. Many people do like to sketch first. So I would never say, whatever you do, don't sketch. I wouldn't say that. But I would certainly say for me, instead of sketching first, I start wireframing in Axure. And if I like where it's going, I start adding the interactivity on it. I go, okay, now let me click through it. So to me, it's all these things put together. Eileen Redmond says, hi. Let's see. And Grace is here. Grace, I think you were at my talk yesterday. Thank you so much. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Grace. Kyle says, let's put these things up as we go. And then I promise we're going to flip into Axure. Kyle says the 2-day live workshop, will it be recorded? Is it Zoom or something else? I have the same mindset as you. I want to jump into Axure rather than Figma, Sketch, or Paper. The 2-day live workshop is not going to be recorded, but everybody who signs up is going to get my 9+ hours of videos. So the lessons that I'm going to be doing in the 2-day workshop, let's throw this up on the screen. The lessons I'm going to do in the 2-day workshop are part of my core skills program that I wrote. And I have a video version that you can buy. Of course, here it is through this link. And I'm giving everybody who signs up the 2-day live workshop and the video package, which again is over 9 hours of videos. It's broken into like 77 videos. So you have short lessons, because if I recorded the 2-day live version and you thought, I think I want to see that checkbox thing again, where in the 2 days was that? You will cry and hate me. The downside to my video courses is that they were filmed with Axure 8. Axure 9 does have some UI and functionality differences, so you have to do a little bit of a brain translation between 8 and 9. But other than that, the techniques are the same. I really have not changed my techniques between 8 and 9. So that is the answer to Kyle. Eileen says, would you say this is true more for enterprise apps versus marketing sites? Is there a threshold for times when full interaction is better than high level how it looks? Even when, if I had to do a marketing site for a company, and I have done that before, I did work at a marketing agency in 2016, I will still put things into Axure, especially if that agency wants to do a little bit of testing before they go ahead and do some of the graphic design or other things. If they're just going to throw it out there and they're going to A/B test it, sometimes it feels like, well, why prototype it? But I also like to prototype because then I like to show it to coworkers. If this is an agency, the client. There's always somebody who wants to see what I'm working on. And so I love using Axure because it brings it to life, and I don't have to sit there and say, imagine what this does. Instead, I can send them an Axure prototype, give them a couple of notes on what works and what doesn't, because I don't build out every possible outcome, and I can say, try this out. Bye. So I think it can definitely be used for marketing sites. And again, let me show you some examples of things that I've used it for. And I'm going into my back catalog on this one, everybody. We are going back into the past. I'm going to be showing you some prototypes that I did years ago. And so obviously in some cases you'd be like, I don't know if I would interaction design that now. And I say, well, don't judge the interaction design choices as much as I just want you to see what Axure can do. Grace says, glad to be here. Curious to see the power of Axure because realistic prototyping has been an issue for me. So true. Issue for many people. Zach says, hi, Debbie. Love your podcast. Thanks for hosting. I'd love to see more about dynamic panel states. Okay. Yeah, we'll certainly be doing those in my 2-day workshop. And I'll do a little bit of those today. And Kyle says, wow, that is a bargain. Yeah, it's hard trying to remember what you did in Axure when it comes to going into a new project and needed past interaction. And Mernouche says, where can I find the 2-day workshop? So the package is right here on the screen, deltacx.link/DEC2020 will take you to a sign-up page where you are registering for the 2-day workshop, which is December 3 and 4, the video courses, or both. It's a package. You can use both, you can use one or the other, and it is $60, 60 American dollars. I'm hoping to try to make 2020 end well, even though I'm not sure it will, but at least hopefully I can help a lot of you upskill. And my core skills course is designed to upskill you from, oh my gosh, Axure's really scary, I don't want to even open it, to confident intermediate. You're not going to know advanced things. If you've heard of repeaters, I don't teach repeaters at that level. I'm trying to teach the core skills, the things that I think you're going to need every day. And I do have an advanced class where I do teach repeaters, more advanced math, local variables, drag and drop. If you want that, that's out there as well. But for this particular workshop, I'm teaching core skills. And let's see, Stephanie is here. Yay! How are you, Stephanie? How's the bike riding going? And Stephanie says, I usually sketch. Then I do the sketch to Axure. So there is a sketch to Axure plugin. I think there's also a Figma to Axure plugin now as well. Check Axure. They've been making plugins. Stephanie says, I usually use Sketch and then Sketch to Axure for prototyping with complex interactions. It's quite nice. So yeah, back to Elijah and other people. If you like to start with Sketch or Figma, you can always use the plugin to bring it into Axure, but not everything is brought into Axure the way that you imagine, so check what plugins they've got. We've also got, I promise I'm going to show Axure, but we're getting so many questions. Kyle says, do you use Axure for documentation, add pages with research concepts, proto results, etc.? Yes and no. I find that the way I make prototypes, very often engineering teams, I go to the engineering team, I go, here's the prototype, check it out. And very often they go, oh, we don't need anything else. And sometimes I will give them some notes like, hey, on this page, you can't really tell from the prototype, but this is my intention, or this is something that happens here, or this is something we're going to validate for. So I sometimes write documentation separately. Axure's not that strong with documentation. They do have the snapshot widget. If any of you want to Google that, since I won't show it today, it will be in the 2-day course, but I don't show it today. I don't use the snapshot widget, though I do teach it in the core skills course, and that is one thing you can use for documentation, but I'm usually ending up in Word with like, hey, on this page, here's some things to know. Here's some notes that go with this, but I try to keep my documentation minimal because people hate reading documentation. So on that note, don't you think we should see this? And I'm going to try to look at your questions at the same time. Stephanie says, bike ride is going great. Good. So what I've done is I am opening up one of the more complex Axure prototypes I've done. Now, I don't want anyone to feel scared or overwhelmed by this because it will be a little scary and overwhelming. But my point in showing it is just to show you that if you ever got to a more advanced level, that this is something that you would be able to build. But again, I don't expect anybody to take my core skills and then end up doing this. I'm going to have a little bit of trouble trying to look at the questions at the same time. I'm having trouble minimizing my Axure window and resizing it. This is can all of you who work in UX please stop making one pixel be the place at which things happen, like grabbing something, because I cannot find the 1 pixel to make the Axure window smaller, but I see this in almost every app I use. I have to find that 1 pixel. I can't find it. All right, so I might have to flip back and forth between what people say and what I'm showing. So let's try this. Did I press the right button? Can everybody see the Axure screen and still see me down in the corner? So I'm in Axure 9, though I'm looking at a prototype I made many years ago in Axure 8. Don't be too overwhelmed by what's on the right side right now. I don't want you to even think about that. Kyle says yes. Great. Then we know it's true. In fact, I'm going to cover it up just for a moment so you're not even thinking about it. So the main things happening on Axure here are pages. So for every page of your website, you've got a page. When I build a mobile app prototype, I do it all on one page. Hard to explain here, better to explain in my mobile app prototyping class, which is separate from core skills. We've got libraries, which is where you're going to find all of your different shapes and things that you can drag out here. And we also have masters, which hasn't been renamed yet, but masters are elements that you use over and over and over again. So for example, this is a website. This was for a bank. And so this is the header. The header is going to be the same on every page. I don't need to keep reproducing it. I want to have global control of it. So I would make it in a master, and that way I can easily do lots of funky stuff with it. And if I change it here, it changes everywhere I've put that master. I know that's pretty common in most other tools, but I want to make sure, they call it different things. It was shared layers back in the Omnigraphal days. So just know that Axure has that as well. Now, a lot of people think that they want to work with Axure styles over here on the right side, but the unfortunately best kept secret in Axure, and it's sad that it's a best kept secret, is Axure has an entire global styling system. So for example, I can say this headline is always rubric, and it's always 36, and it's always orange, and it's left justified, and it's boop bop beep. If you manually do that, when your client or boss or visual designer or somebody comes back and goes, oh, we're going to change that orange, you will want to punch somebody, right? So Axure actually has, and it's up here, and it's hard to know because it's the wrong icon. It looks like a Microsoft Word document, and it's gray on gray, which makes you think it's disabled. So again, there are things in Axure, and especially in Axure 9, that I think are poor UX, but you're just going to have to suffer through them until they make them better. And here I can assign a whole bunch of styles. Now, Axure's global styles are imperfect. There's definitely a lot of complaints and concerns about them, but at the very least, they will make your life easier because I can make something called H1 orange or H2 orange, whatever I should have named it, and I can say, here's what it looks like. The box isn't filled. It's rubric. It's 36. It's orange. There's no border. Here's how it's aligned, and boom. And that way, again, if this ever changed, and I'll make a change to it now, let's imagine somebody said, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing bright purple. Then I can come in here and go bright purple, and this should change everywhere that particular style was called upon. Now this didn't change because this isn't H1 orange, it's H2 orange. So I would have to go and change that. I'll press undo. I'm pressing undo and it's being grumpy. Did not undo. Wow, Axure, come on, get it together with your global styles. So I'll leave it purple for now, but, and let's see what questions am I missing any questions? No, good. So in general, you can do the global widget styles. It's a little bit like imagining CSS, but it's still medium powerful in Axure. It doesn't do all the things people hope it will, but it's still better than manually styling this box every time you need it and then needing to change it later. Oh, it hurts. So what else is going on? That means I tell people, stay away from the siren song of this top bar and these styles over here. Don't do it. Make global styles and apply them. Here's stuff everybody's going to recognize from other tools they use. Your X and Y coordinates, which are the only requirements to take my course. You must know what X and Y coordinates are because I'm not explaining them to you. Here's your width and height and whether or not you want to lock the ratio. This eyeball is something totally unrelated. It's always been a little bit of an information architecture wackiness, and that has to do with whether or not an element on the page is seen, is visible by default to the person experiencing the prototype. So for example, these yellow boxes are clues to me that there's something here that isn't seen. And you can see when I click on it, there is a slash through the eye because by default this is hidden. So if I click this, you'll see this is what people would see if they had clicked on whatever it was that would bring this up. So these might be tooltips, these could be pop-ups, these could be success messages. There's lots of reasons why we want to show and hide things, and that's a very common interaction around Axure. Now, one thing that I want to show you, the reason why this particular prototype is so advanced is because the bank wanted this to be beyond realistic, wildly realistic. And what that meant was, in addition to it being high fidelity, where I got real photos and the fonts, and I got Photoshop mock-ups, I got the real text. In addition to that, I also had to make all of the mathematical calculations work. If you invest $5,000 for 10 months, what interest rate will you get? They were trying to plug their wonderful interest rates. Now, the downside for numbers in Axure, and it is in my advanced course, it's not in core skills, is that Axure's bad with number formatting. It's not as easy as it is in Excel. And I told the bank it was very difficult, believe it or not, to put a comma in the number 5,000. It can be done. I've done it, but it's a bit ugly. And I said, do you mind if I do numbers without commas? So for the purposes of their testing, a number without comma was fine. They could have said, no, do it, and I would have had to spend hours on it. So it can be done. It's just not pretty. It's not like a simple setting somewhere where we say, this is American currency, put a comma in. Doesn't work like that yet. I've been begging for that for years. So you'll notice my numbers don't have commas. But other than that, what I have here is I have a text input field where people can imagine what is their investment amount. I have a drop menu here where people can say how long they're going to invest. And then we have an interest rate to show the more you invest for the longer time, you get a better interest rate. They wanted those to change realistically. I got an Excel spreadsheet of if you invest this amount of money for this amount of time, this is your rate. And then I had to put all that in manually. But before I show you that, let's take a look at what it looks like out in the real world. So let's do a little preview. And you should still be able to see now my Firefox screen. And I can say I want to, so we've got 5,000, 12 months, 1.1%. Let's see, what happens if I say 36 months? 1.57%. Oh, what a deal. And what if I want to invest a lot of money? I've got $50,000. I'm going to throw a zero in there. Ooh, 1.63%. Will the wonders ever cease? What if I want to invest a lot of money in a short amount of time? Ooh, not very good. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying realistic prototypes. I don't think you can totally do this in InVision unless you pre-made a bunch of screens that it could jump to. Now, lower on the page, we have this chart. And again, no commas because I didn't want to do it. When you put in how much you will invest, and by the way, I have these linked. So whatever happens down here is the number up here, and whatever happens up here, let's put in a wacky number, 272727, it's my investment, is going to show up down here. So whenever I type a number here, it'll change the interest rate, and then the bank actually gave me the mathematical formula for how they calculate interest on a thing. And I know now an easier way to do this, but when I built this in 2013, I was using workarounds. Now I know better, faster ways to do this, but yikes. And if you change this, all the numbers on the screen will change because it's doing real math. So let's see if there's any questions as I go. Feel free to ask questions. I'll do my best to keep up with the chat rooms. So you can see that in addition to being a realistic looking website, you know, I've got my little accordions popping open and popping closed. I think I also have where did Axure move it? Oh, here we go. The phone version. Oh, not on this page. All right. I had worked on a phone version and it does work, and I just have the wrong file. But you can see where this is going. And of course, I have menus that look like realistic website menus. So the idea was to have the most realistic thing. Oh, yeah, not for every page. So we just put this here. The idea was to have a very realistic website that they could bring to testing. And so let's sneak back into Axure, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how I built that. Now, again, this is not what I'm teaching in core skills. This is just an example of where you can go with Axure when you get past intermediate and you're moving into advanced. And the way that I built these calculations is something that we would call a listener, or an automatically repeating process. And a listener is your friend in Axure when you're thinking something, hey, I wish Axure could just check every fraction of a second if someone has retyped different numbers or pulled down this menu and picked something different and just recalculate it for me. Axure, can you just check every few seconds, or check, well, that's too short, every fraction of a second, and just do this for me? That's what the listener's all about. So here's what's cooking here. Let's take a look at how some of the behind the scenes. And again, this will look a little confusing. Just let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. This is the drop panel where you picked different months. Every time you picked a month, I showed you that month, but I also grabbed a number and I put it behind the scenes. And this is called a variable. I said, okay, Axure, I've got a number I need you to remember because I'm going to do some math later. Let's call CD terms 12 because they picked 12 months. Let's call CD terms 18 because they picked 18. So notice I'm hiding some numbers behind the scenes so that I can more easily have Axure do some things later. You have to be a little bit of a planner and a thinking ahead person for Axure. Now I can do the same thing with this number. I can say, hey Axure, when people type something on this, can you grab whatever number they've typed and hold it behind the scenes in what I'm going to call CD deposit amount. So we've got CD deposit amount is the amount they want to invest, and we've got CD terms is the length of time. Now we have to teach Axure, if CD amount, deposit amount, is between this number and this number, and CD terms is this number, this is the interest rate. Ooh, this was ugly. Now, this wasn't difficult to do. It just took a lot of time. I'll show you how I built it, and you'll be able to see that this isn't that hard, but man, that would take a lot of time because it's our old friends, permutations and combinations. I had to match up all of these money ranges, and I think there were 6 or so money ranges with all of the length of time people could invest, and I think there were 8 or something, so that was a lot. So let me show you where these are hiding. These are hiding over here. And I have a bunch of statements I've made to Axure with what we would call conditional logic, which says, hey Axure, if the amount they're investing is in this range, and they picked this from that menu, show them this. So here's what one of those looks like. Look at the first one. Now, the first thing is what I've named it so that it helps me look at it and go, what is this again? And this is if they've put a number under 5,000 and they picked 3 months from the menu. And the way that I teach Axure is, if the value of CD terms is 3, so remember when people pulled the menu and they picked 3, I held behind the scenes the number 3. If CD terms is 3 and the text on CD deposit amount, which is this guy, if the text written there is less than 5,000, write the number 0.35 over here where it says 1.1. Set text just means go write a number somewhere. You know, hey Axure, can you just write this number? That's set text. Set text will be a part of the core skills thing. Elijah says, oh wow, you can actually have people do things like enter data into form fields. That's amazing. Yeah, that's one of Axure's strengths, and we can actually do things with that data. I can hold it behind the scenes. And in fact, let's show you what that looks like if I hold something behind the scenes. Here we go. We're back here in CD land. Over here, where you see like mathematical Greeky X, is where Axure has what's called the console. And this is where I get to see cool stuff Axure has behind the scenes. Take a look. CD terms 12, CD deposit amount 5,000. Now watch me change that over here and watch these change over here. Let's add a 0. 50,000. Now this says 50,000. Let's pick something else from this menu. 6 months. Now CD term says 6. So again, this is advanced, but we are going to learn variables in the core skills course, but this use of them is a little bit more advanced. So you can see you can teach Axure to hold things behind the scenes, and then you can use them later to say back to the customer, to the user of the prototype, or just hold it behind the scenes and compare things so that it becomes part of your conditional logic. Kyle says, Debbie, can you show the outline in the page so we can see what's been clicked? Do you mean the trace? You don't want to see the trace when I've got a listener. So the problem with the listener is every fraction of a second, this thing is running a whole bunch of cases to see if it meets any of the conditions, which means my trace is just wild. You don't want to see the trace. You probably didn't mean the outline. So let's flip back. So again, take a look at this logic. Now, it took me a while to build all the possible combinations. The end. And that's how I get the correct number to show up here on this interest rate. I know you're thinking, oh man, that must have been a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but it wasn't difficult work. And the way that I teach people to build in Axure is baby steps. Do one thing once. Make sure it works. Okay, now copy paste that, change it. Now see if that one works. So I didn't build all of these and then go, oh crap. Avraham says, it looks like it can understand numbers as text, not sure if it can do math equations. Nope, it understands numbers as numbers, so you can definitely do math equations. In fact, I'm going to show you that soon. Because you might wonder, how did Deb get it to calculate all these numbers down here? Remember that? It did realistic math. Let's get rid of the console. It did realistic. Now, this was just set text. This was write this number here, snooze, goodbye. But this was do the math. So I will show you that, though again, I apologize. Back in 2013, I had a bit of a long way to do it that I know now there's a better way. But I will still explain it and you will see how it was done. So let's zoom in a little bit and let's get to know the pieces of the puzzle. So here I've got a text box. And that text box I'm calling 6-month interest text. So at some point I can say to Axure, there's something I need you to write on this box. Which box? 6-month interest text. Here's 3-month interest text. Here's 9-month interest text. So this is up here, it's the name of this element. And it's just text. It's not a typable input field. Up here is how much I'm going to invest. So that's my deposit amount. And then I've got this hidden thing. And again, don't worry about these hidden things. We'll try to go over them in the 2-day course. They're a little bit more advanced, but they're good to know. Now take a look at the fun adventures I'm having here. Let's dig in on this one. So let's focus over here. If the value is less than 5,000, here's what you do. First of all, write these numbers on these boxes. 3-month rate says 35, 6 months says 65, 9 months says 69. So again, let's see that come to life. If this is, what was it, less than 5,000? If this is less than 5,000, so let's make this say 3,000. Okay, here it is, 35, 65, 69. That was just a simple, hey, Axure, I know what needs to be written here. Just write it here. No math. Now, here's where I'm doing a little bit of math, and this is where it got ugly. And this is where I know I could do a better job now, but stick with me. Hey, Axure, I need you to write some text, so it's set text again, on what? On the interest text box. Okay, what do you want me to write? A giant function. I want you to take the amount that they're investing, remember that was held behind the scenes in CD deposit amount, and I want you to multiply it by this factor. Now, when I first did that, it gave me the results to 10 decimal points. That doesn't look like money. So I had to add 2 fixed 2, which gave me 2 decimal points, and I had to add a $sign at the beginning. And I had to do that a lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. A lot, a lot. So that took some time, and it was difficult to figure out at first, but once I got it cooking, I was cooking. And so Axure is really doing real math behind the scenes. These are not fixed numbers because I can write any number in there and Axure will give me the real math. I can say I want to invest $272.89. It's done the real math on that. I can say I'm investing blah, hit the keyboard, blah, 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 blah. And it's giving me the real math on that. So Axure can certainly deal with text and it can deal with numbers and functions. But again, that is technically not part of my core skills class. That is part of my advanced skills class. Kyle says pages, outlines, libraries, masters. Yeah. What are you asking? Are you asking what are these? So again, pages are the pages on this website. Libraries are going to be the shapes and other things that you're dragging out here, like the way I create this box or this box or this box. or a checkbox or a text field. I don't use the ones on the bottom. Masters are things I'll use over and over, and the outline just it's like layers in Photoshop. It shows me everything I've dragged out that I want to find later, though I do have a filter on here where I'm only having it show me things I've given a name to. Excuse me, if you show it everything, even the things you didn't give a name to, it is ouch, it's too much. Stephanie says, I wonder if new versions use more modern JS that doesn't need to listen to every pixels observers, I think. I don't know, Stephanie. Better question for Axure. So questions as I'm going. Again, this is advanced. You're not necessarily going to be able to build this prototype after our core skills class, but this is the idea of creating something that is really realistic and much more true to life. Even if we didn't have the real colors and the real font and the real stock photo, if we were testing something about the way that people could calculate interest or see their interest rate, we would be able to do that. And we've got a couple of wacky things here. Interest that's compounded monthly. So I've got these goofy tooltips that the bank designed. So there's tooltips there. You saw the accordion on the bottom. And Kyle was asking. He was asking in regards to about outlines to see what's been clicked. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. If I click on this guy, a listener is a dynamic panel with two states, but it has to be started at the page level. So again, this is not something that's easy to reverse engineer. It's got a lot of secret, sneaky pieces in wacky places. Axure taught me how to do this. I was like, how do I make an automatic repeating process? And so I learned it from them, Dad. So that's why I have this weird little dynamic panel hanging out, kind of doing nothing. It's my listener, and I have another one down the page. So yeah, sorry, I think I get it now. How do you name your dynamic panels so it's easy to remember? I name everything very humanly. I wasn't a coder before this. I know a lot of people who learned coding tend to name stuff in Axure based on whatever coding language they learned. I met a lot of people who used to write in ActionScript and were naming things in Axure the way they would in ActionScript, but that doesn't necessarily have meaning to me, and it may not have meaning to my coworkers, especially if I quit that job and you're stuck with my file. So I tend to name things in a very human way. This is the rate box listener because it's going to change the rate box. This is the rate drop list panel. This is the full accordion number 5. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accordions. Content 1. I tend to name things by what they are. I try not to use numbers too much because I don't want to call things button 1, button 2, button 3. But since there are 5 accordions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I gave them numbers. So mostly I name things in a very human way because I find that just makes the most sense to people. So so Axure does fake responsive design. It does adaptive design. So this is the same page in the phone version, and it actually does work in the prototype. This is 375 wide. So that was what, everybody? iPhone 5? That's how old this is. So this was, and yes, even the accordions work, and they're not different accordions. They're the same ones. And they just work in phone, and that was a little hard to build. I know better ways now, but back then I was figuring it out. So you can, in one screen, you can make your fake responsive adaptive view. Again, it does not do fully responsive design because Axure doesn't know how you want things to reflow. Do things change sizes? Do things flow differently? So you have to kind of choose breakpoints and make them there. Elijah says, good to know there's no limits on those names. In coding, you can use certain naming convention. It'll break or it won't work if you use spaces or the wrong caps. Axure only has one spot where they make you name something without spaces. It's your variables. Other than that, you have pretty free range on your naming. Stephanie says, I feel like this is the complex part. Everyone has their own way of doing things in Axure, so opening someone else's prototype is an adventure. It is. And that's often why I do recommend my own training, because then everybody learned the same way and they're likely to do things the same way. There's some people I've been training recently who learned from a guy on a YouTube video, and I felt a lot of his lessons were poor. And then they came to me and they said, well, our files are really slow and bloated. And I was like, why'd you build it this way? And they're like, but we saw this YouTube video. And I was like, oh, well. So, you know, that is, Stephanie's right. That is the double-edged sword of Axure, is that you can make something work, but it can definitely be a bit of a nightmare in how you built it, where you put the interactions. Is it bloated? Is it slow to load? It does take a little bit of a detective sometimes. So that's why I try to use as many best practices as possible. I don't try to reinvent any wheels. I just try to teach people the best ways to do things and where I and other people are more likely to look for these things. We've got 15 minutes left. So let's see if I can quickly show you another one that I've pulled up. This was a prototype that I did for a couple of years ago for a small website project for a company selling labor law posters, which will make sense to Americans and no sense to anybody else. Now, the first thing that I want to mention is that here in the homepage hero, they wanted to create two paths for people based on whether they wanted to start with their state or based on whether they wanted to start with the poster advisor. Now, this is what I had originally designed, and I thought, okay, either people will pull down this menu or they'll hit the button. Well, Gestalt principles of proximity, wouldn't you know, everybody pull down the button, pull down the menu, and then click the button. So this was a place where usability testing was able to show me that I made a mistake in how I laid this out, and that I needed to fix it so that the button looked like a separate path and not as the submit button for the drop list. So great that I could bring this to life, because chances are if I had shown someone a wireframe of this, they'd be like, yeah, looks good. Nice work, Deb. Help. So let's take a look at what we built here. And by we, I mean me. Now, of course, this is medium fidelity. There's lots of placeholders and there isn't much color. And so that's normally what I'm working in, but if people have a style and they want to use it, I will. So I'm going to do poster advisor. And the idea was you could find what labor law posters you need based on your state and a couple of other things. So I can pick California, and then I can say I'm in San Mateo. And then you can see I've got progressive disclosure. As I choose different choices, the bottom of the page moves down, something appears in between, and I can say we are a restaurant. Are you a federal contractor? No. Does anyone operate a forklift? No. Next. Do you speak Spanish? No. Do you need blind posters for visually impaired? No. Do you want our super cool upgrade? No. Do you also want wash your hands or choking? Sure, I'll take wash your hands. See required posters. Now at this point, I had this page just built by hand, pretty much a wireframe. There's only one or two things that change based on what you just did in that process. If you said you didn't want their upgrade super deal, we plug the super deal here. If you said you wanted it, we give you a way to take off the deal. So that's one thing that changes, and I think that's it. So that's mostly that. So this wasn't something what we wanted to test to see if this seemed easier or harder or where could it be improved from how the company was selling their posters now. And this was good enough for us to get a lot of nice feedback from the people that we user tested with. I think we might have used either Validately or Userlytics. I don't remember. It might have been Userlytics. Again, not paid, not sponsored. I think all of these tools are pretty equal at this point, and it's just a matter of who you feel like paying. And I want to pay the least. So that's just an example. And again, I don't even think these numbers add up correctly, so disregard this number here. So that's an example of where I made this kind of walkthrough with this progressive disclosure so that we could see what ordering labor law posters might look like. And then I think we did some stuff with the cart as well. This is an old Axure 8 prototype. So we've got the cart with the upsell. Yeah, this is where it started getting wacky. So I'm going to just close this one. But that's a little bit more about Axure. So let's build something together live real quickly. I created a sample page before you all saw me today. Where is it? Beach cabanas. Okay, so this is what I made for everybody. I made a page. That's our dog pen. Looks like Teseo from the back. And this summer we had built a little summer experience for the dogs with a cabana and a swimming pool. Then we have, just a boring website looking thing. And I just made a silly page so that I had something to work with for testing. And now we can decide what we want to do with this to build. I could make a mobile version. And by the way, you see this pink on it? The pink tells me this is a master. So as the header, this is a master I could use over and over. I know Kyle wanted, Elijah says, if you don't mind, what does this look like on the back end? Is it all one screen or artboard? You can add more elements or each of those different artboards. So Axure thinks more in web pages. So if something is a web page, it's all on that page. You don't have multiple artboards on one page. Everything happens on that page. And then if your website goes to another page, you build another page. They tried making it work like an artboard and look like an artboard, and that didn't make sense to me at all. I didn't understand why we were doing that. Let's go back to where we were. So I have that turned off right now because they actually had where you could have negative space, and I said, it's a web page. I don't have negative space. I have visible space. So I don't know why they did that. I think they're pulling from Sketch and Figma a little too much. So Axure doesn't think in artboards. It generally thinks in pages, like pages of a website, app, system, SaaS. Again, in the app, I teach people not to build pages. We build one page, but everything else, website, system, SaaS, etc., probably multiple pages. Thank you, Elijah. Let's see, what can we build here? Let's see, we've got a button here. So I'll show you really quickly, how do we make this button do something? So let's come up with a blank page. Page 1 is a blank page. I'll just say blank page, just so that when we get there, you know we're there. Back on the Beach Cabanas page, let's say I want this button to go to the blank page. So I click the button because this is where the action happens. Oop, go back. I don't have to look at it. I go to interactions and I say, let's build a new interaction. And now I use this method because I think the new way in Axure 9 to build an interaction is slower. So I use this. And this says, okay, first let's start with what event triggers the action. We're working on the button. What has to happen to the button to make something happen? Are they clicking it? Are they double clicking it? Is there a right click or context menu? Is it a mouse enter and hover? I teach those in core skills. That's like a hover state or a mouse over. Long click, keys being pressed, and other things that you can make happen. But for the most part, if people click on it, okay, what should happen? Now we're seeing a whole list of actions, things Axure can do because someone clicked or tapped on this. Should we open a link? Should we close a window? Should we scroll to something? Should we show something? Should we set a panel state? And again, you won't know what a lot of these mean, but some of them are intuitive. Should we enable or disable something? So you have a disabled button, you want to enable it. Okay. Should we move something? So there's a lot that we can do, but quite simply, I could say, let's open a link. Let's go to page 1 in the current window. Okay. And then Axure shows you over here, if you click on this button, when a click or tap happens, we're going to open a link. What page? Page 1. So now let's preview it. So I'll scroll down, I'll click it, and here I am. I've gone to the other page. So this is a prototype with 2 pages, Beach Cabanas and page 1, and that's all it does, and that's what I've built it to do. Now I can start to add conditions on top of this. Let's imagine that we have a checkbox here. And again, this is not great interaction design. I should really space things out better, but I'm showing this to you for just the purpose of seeing a little bit of how Axure works. I agree to the terms, as everyone does. So this is a checkbox, and we can give this a checkbox name. I'll call it terms checkbox. And what I can do is I can say to Axure, I don't want you to go to the next page if they didn't check this box. Now, of course, if we wanted to build this realistically, you would come up with an error message and you would say, please check this box, or this box is required. I'm not going to do all of that now. I'm just going to show you how we build a little bit of conditional logic to check when someone clicks this button, did they check that box? I only want to move them to the next page if they checked that box. Elijah says, if you don't mind and no one else has ideas, can you show us what it looks like if you add progressive disclosure on the page like an accordion or hidden section? Them's is ugly, but we do progressive disclosure in core skills, and we do easy cheesy accordions in core skills. I do complex accordions in advanced skills. Let me quickly show everybody just how this conditional logic works so you can see a little bit of how things get built in Axure, just because I don't want people to be so afraid of Axure. Let's tell Axure, clicking contact us goes to page 1 only if this checkbox is checked. So if the terms checkbox is checked. Now here's where we have to learn a little bit of Axure's language. Axure doesn't say if the checkbox is checked. It says if selected of the terms checkbox is true. That's a little funky. You know, it comes from programming stuff. So you have to kind of learn Axure's language. And so let's see what that looks like. I've got this. Now I want to add conditional logic, so I click Enable Cases. Also not intuitive. I wish that button just said Add Conditional Logic, but there you go. Enable Cases. If checkbox is checked. This is my name for it. This doesn't do anything in Axure. This just reminds me, why did I build this condition? And this is where I like to use a lot of human language. So if anybody sees this later, they go, oh, yeah, that thing. Add logic. If, okay, so if is selected, if what's selected? The terms checkbox is true. So if the terms checkbox is truly selected, which means it's been checked off. If it's unchecked, that would be false selected. So if the terms checkbox is truly selected, if it meets that condition, Axure will then do the actions you've put into place. If this condition is not met, Axure will not do this case. And it might look to see if you've written another case that says, oh, if it's not checked, show this error message. So we're not going to have time to build all that out. We've only got a few more minutes and I've got to sign off. Elijah says, just asking because Figma and Sketch make you create another artboard for different states of the same page. No, not in Axure. No. So let's see if we can refresh this. Go back in time to the Beach Cabanas universe. Where's our Beach Cabanas? Here we go. Refresh. Here it is. I agree to the terms. So we can watch the console and we can see what Axure is doing with the trace. So I click the button and Axure says, I saw you click, but I didn't do anything because the condition wasn't met. You told me if the checkbox is checked, go to the next page. Checkbox isn't checked. I saw you click, didn't do anything. Now if I check the box and I try again, Now when I click this, and it's going to go by very fast because we're leaving the page, Axure goes, oh yeah, here we are. I saw you click. The checkbox was checked. It met the condition, so I did this thing. And by starting to write one or more conditions, we can create very realistic paths and outcomes and validation and error messages being shown and error messages being hidden because they fixed the problem. So there's lots of ways that we can make this very realistic, especially when we think about our IA process flows, user flows, flow charts. There's lots of branches. Very often we can't just prototype the happy path. You can prototype the happy path when you're still playing with your concept, but then eventually you should prototype the I got it wrong path and try doing some field validation, which we can fake out in Axure, and show people error messages. Also great for the engineering team to see what some of these messages look like or how they appear on the screen. Now you have some of that in the style guide. If you have a style guide, sometimes they've got to take it from something like this. So on that note, let me zoom back to myself, right? Back to me. Hello. And Elijah says, absolutely incredible. Really like that. Includes so much logic in Axure. Yeah, there's a lot of it. Now again, Axure's not perfect. There's aspects of it that are a little clunky to use. There's aspects where they didn't eat their own dog food. There's some inconsistencies. There's some UX wackiness. I'm not going to tell you Axure's perfect, but I'm going to tell you of the ones that I've tried. To me, it's the most powerful that's still relatively easy to learn. I've tried a few others. They seemed less powerful or they seemed harder to learn. And that's my personal opinion. Some people might disagree with that, and that's cool. My thought is, as long as you're doing realistic prototyping, I don't care if you're writing code, using Framer, using Just in Mind, using whatever. I'm not going to show up at your door and complain that you're not using Axure. I think Axure is the best choice, but I think ultimately, as long as you are doing prototyping that is realistic to behavior, prototyping that is realistic to interaction, you are leveling up, and it's so important for our profession. Eileen says, powerful stuff, especially in complex enterprise apps, lots of different states, conditions, etc. that dev needs to understand. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Eileen. Good to see you again. Should put up your happy picture. There we go. So I am running out of time. I'm running late. So just, of course, another quick reminder that if you are watching this before December 3rd, you can still sign up for the Axure courses. Again, you'll get my core skills videos, even though they were filmed in Axure 8. You'll have to do a little bit of a translation for where Axure 9 moved some things unnecessarily. If you are watching this after this workshop has happened, please just go to my P-Type Academy. I'll put that on the screen. That is, hold on, I got to type it because I'm not ready. P-Type Academy. P-Type is short for prototype, and Academy is Academy. Let's put that up. P-Type Academy is where I put a lot of my online courses. Some are free, some are paid. My Axure classes are all paid, so they are not freebies. But again, you can get core skills at a discount, and the other ones are available as well. I've got advanced skills, and I've got mobile app prototyping. Now, both advanced skills and mobile app prototyping assume you've taken core skills. So I'm going to treat you like you know what the heck you're doing and you are confident intermediate, and then show you the other stuff. So the P-Type Academy has all my courses, but if it is not too late, I hope you will join me for the live 2-day core skills. That's going to be probably over Zoom. I will be sharing my screen. I'm not going to have my camera on. I'll share my screen. So it's best if you have 2 screens or one big screen that you can split. That way you're looking at one screen, you're watching what I'm doing, and then on your screen, you're doing it. The core skills course is a work along with me course. The idea is not for you to watch me and then do it later. Nobody's going to do that. You're going to build along with me. And if people are getting stuck, we're going to stop and we're going to help them. Hopefully we won't run out of time. As of now, I have 13 people signed up. I'd love to get 200, but hopefully I've got lots of people who are going to come and learn Axure, and we'll do our best to get through as much of it as possible in the 2 days, intermediate or advanced in 8 or 9. All of my video courses were shot on Axure 8. The problem with shooting courses on Axure 9 is they are still changing 9. Almost every time I download 9, they've put in something new or put back something they took out of 8 that everybody complained about. Axure 9, in my opinion, is changing too fast for me to record 17 hours of video courses again. Oh, that took forever. That took me weeks. There you go. Any last questions, let me know, but thanks for letting me show people a little bit about the power of Axure. And again, if you think about all the things you can do with hover and swipe, you might not have seen it, but there's swipe for mobile and flick and tap and all these other things. You can definitely build things that work on mobile devices. I have run prototypes on my phone. Axure also has an app, and you can deploy your prototypes to your app if your company security policies allow, and you can run them on a phone and test them from a phone. The only downside is you have to plan ahead of time which phone they'll be on and design for that width, because again, Axure does not do real responsive. It doesn't redraw or rewrap things based on the size of things. It deals mostly in fixed widths. So that's why my old prototype with my phone version is 375 wide for an iPhone 5, and that's all it's going to be. And if I were to open it on my Samsung Galaxy Note 9, it would probably be a tiny strip of bacon taking up about half this screen. Nothing I can do about that. Ugh, clicky jaw moment. So I hope that answers that for everybody. If you have any other Axure questions, let me know. I'll stick around 2 more minutes. Then I've got to go feed the dogs in the rain. So I've got my boots on. I really do. I put on my boots ahead of time. That's for Paul, but he's not here. So I've got my galoshes on. I'm ready for action. Dog's got to eat. But any last questions, let me know now. Thanks to everybody for dropping by and watching some of the Axure action. And again, that's why Axure is pronounced that way. It's kind of like action. I see many people trying to give a Frenchy pronunciation to it. It's Azure. It's Axure. It's really just Axure like action. Kyle says, thanks, see you at the workshop. I hope to see lots of you at the workshop. Again, the workshop is December 3 and 4, if you can make it live. And whether or not you make it live, everybody who signs up will get the video courses. And I've been sending out the link to the video courses usually within a day of when you sign up for the workshop. So you're going to get the video courses ASAP, usually within a day. And then we'll all join hands on December 3rd and 4th for the live version. Sorry that in some time zones it's ugly times. Sorry. All right, I'm going to run. I'm going to play us out of here. Everybody be well. Remember, tomorrow's office hours Ask Me Anything. Please note that Italy is on daylight savings time this week, so this might be a different time than you're used to seeing me. Please check how Italy time relates to where you are around the world. And then America changes this weekend. Check again next week. Tomorrow's office hours Ask Me Anything, and I hope you'll join on Wednesday for comedy office hours Ask Deb's Boyfriend Anything. We're going to be silly because I think we all need it. So come be silly, come be serious tomorrow and be silly on Wednesday, and check your clocks to see what time 6:30 p.m. Italy is where you are. And Elijah says, thanks, that was informative. I hope so. I'm going to play us out of here. Be well, low ego action heroes, and I'll see you all very soon. Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.